Life 3.0, Being Human in the Age of Artificial Intelligence by Max Tegmark is not only easy to understand and clearly organized, but also spends a lot of time discussing the technological development of artificial intelligence and ethical debates, listing the 7 major myths that people have about artificial intelligence, and responding to various ethical controversies through different scenarios. The author is actively involved in the ethical debate and research on AI, and reminds readers that the future should not only be imagined and feared, but also pragmatically understood and engaged. The author, a professor at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, and chairman of the Future of Life Institute, Foley, explains in depth the reasons for artificial intelligence and the new definitions it brings to war, justice, work, and society, and then thinks about the definitions of human beings, and even the possibilities of the next billion years. The impact and harm that artificial intelligence will cause to the human world is not in the distant future, but in the present, and the forces behind it are crucial factors that cannot be ignored. Artificial intelligence is not a purely scientific issue. How will it develop in the future? What will it look like? Who will define it? Who will guide it? What impact will it have? All of these are closely related to the competition for power and the manipulation of politics and business, and it is a political issue that has already taken place in the present time. It is an urgent political issue that is happening right now, because capitalist groups have turned people's privacy into big data for private gain, and totalitarian states are collecting people's faces in the name of security in an attempt to monitor and rule. Who controls artificial intelligence? Who will use it? This is the biggest ethical issue. How should we analyze it? How to face it? Or, how to resist? Max Tegmark, the cosmologist who formulated the mathematical universe hypothesis, MA, wrote a previous book, Our Mathematical Universe. The mathematical universe hypothesis is a theory of everything, TO, which assumes that there exists an overarching, coherent physical theoretical framework that explains all the physical mysteries of the universe. Max Tegmark believed that everything in the universe, including human beings, was part of a mathematical structure. Everything is formed by particles that have properties such as charge and spin, but these properties are purely mathematical. Space itself has properties such as size, but it is ultimately a mathematical structure. Whether the universe is mathematically structured or not, the most imminent crisis for mankind is the so-called superhuman AGI, general artificial intelligence. This strong sense of crisis has even made Taiwan's Ministry of Science and Technology, MOST, to engage in AI regardless of whether Taiwan has an advantage, whether the quality of the project is good or not, and whether other basic research that has been worked on for decades is important or not. Simply give me AI, or else. However, regardless of whether Taiwan's Ministry of Science and Technology spends money on artificial intelligence, top foreign research institutions and multinational corporations are likely to make the sci-fi super artificial intelligence come true. What is intelligence? What is the definition of artificial intelligence? Is it possible for humans to build something smarter than themselves? As a master of the cosmic perspective, TEMAC regards super artificial intelligence as a third version of life, believing that super artificial intelligence is not an invention or improvement of all the technological tools of the past, but a completely new stage in the evolution of life. When super artificial intelligence has evolved to such a stage, whether we humans can control it or not is no longer an issue, just as multicellular organisms have evolved from single-cell organisms, but they are completely different from single-cell organisms. So can single-cell organisms control multi-cell organisms or not can be an issue. Whether it is welcomed or not, the arrival of a super artificial intelligence is probably just a matter of time, or even if we should say that time is not an issue, it is a matter of how the super artificial intelligence is going to arrive. Will it come in such a way that we won't even see its taillights once it appears on the scene? In the world of a few decades from now, will we be in control of the super artificial intelligence, or will the super artificial intelligence be in control of us? According to Max Tegmark, once the super artificial intelligence emerges, human beings will be left far behind, and what will become of the world then depends on what we decide now. Life 3.0 features an interesting fictional story. In this story, even if a super artificial intelligence is imprisoned in a computer room without a network, as long as the human guards have human weaknesses, they can escape from the cage and manipulate human society, politics, and economy as fast as they can, and then humanity. As long as we live under the fierce competition of the capitalist world, enterprises have no incentive to reject general artificial intelligence. We humans may not even know what a super artificial intelligence is before it has designed its own hardware and software, upgrading and evolving itself. Please read Dan Brown's book. Read Dan Brown's Origin for a more scientific understanding of this Life 3.0. As super artificial intelligence becomes smarter and smarter, and takes over in many fields, how will it affect us? How can we maximize our benefits and not get hurt? Many people are worried about generalized artificial intelligence, mainly because of which jobs will be taken away and how many jobs will be taken away. How many jobs will be taken away? What kind of perverted things will it do to human beings? All of these questions are dwarfed by the realization that super artificial intelligence is the last invention of mankind. Even for the super artificial intelligence, I am afraid that Earth is no longer the only place for it to live, and the whole universe is a chemical factory for the super artificial intelligence. According to Max Tegmark, our universe has goals, and even DNA has goals built into it for living things to fulfill. Will intelligent super artificial intelligences have their own goals and start to act differently in the future? What would a super artificial intelligence do to the universe? This begs the question, what is the ultimate end of the universe? Anyone who knows a little bit about the second law of thermodynamics knows that the goal of the universe is to maximize the entropy, which means that the universe will evolve towards more and more disordered direction, and finally return to thermal silence, and the end of all the physical events is the unchanging truth of the universe. Life is a state of negative entropy, but that is because life actually increases the entropy value of the universe to a greater extent. In other words, life reduces the entropy of the living system by increasing the total entropy of the universe. In other words, life reduces the entropy of the living system by increasing the total entropy of the universe. Super artificial intelligence is a state of life that uses more powerful forces to achieve this goal. What is Life 3.0? Max Tegmark divided the history of life development into 3 stages: Life 1.0, Life 2.0, and Life 3.0. Life 1.0 organisms have no way to improve their own software or upgrade their own hardware, and they can only follow the DNA settings to finish their life, such as a bacterium, which can neither change its environment nor itself. Life 2.0 has the ability to change its own software through learning, and it has the ability to change itself through learning. Life 2.0 has the ability to change its software through learning, but it cannot change its hardware. As human beings, we are the best example of Life 2.0. We can improve our intelligence through learning and change our environment, but we cannot do much to upgrade our physical body. Life 3.0 refers to a form of life in which not only the software can be upgraded, but also the hardware can be updated. When human beings reach the stage of Life 3.0, they will be able to break free from the shackles of evolution, and truly become the masters of their own destiny. It has been 13.8 billion years since the birth of our universe, and it has gradually awakened and realized its existence. On a tiny blue planet, a small conscious part of our universe began to look into outer space through a telescope, and kept discovering that all the things it knew existed were in fact just a drop in the ocean of the entire universe. First the solar system, then the galaxies, and then the universe was actually made up of hundreds of billions of different galaxies in the form of clusters, groups of galaxies, and superclusters of galaxies. Although these self-conscious stargazers had their own ideas, they generally agreed that the universe of galaxies was so beautiful and vast that it was intimidating. But such beauty is only in the eye of the beholder, not in the laws of physics. Meaning, the concept of beauty didn't exist before the universe became conscious, which makes the awakening of our universe all the more amazing and celebratory. Our universe has metamorphosed from being a zombie with no self-awareness into a vibrant ecosystem with the capacity for reflection, aesthetics, and aspirations, and an understanding of the pursuit of purpose, meaning, and mission. If only our universe were not so rich and diverse in life forms. The most successfully evolved of these species quickly gained an absolute competitive advantage and were able to respond to their environment to a certain extent. To put it more bluntly, these species are what computer scientists call intelligent agents, mechanisms that have the ability to collect information about the environment through sensors, digest it, and then decide how to respond to it. This involves a highly complex information processing process, just as you would use the information you get from your eyes and ears to decide how to conduct a conversation, but it may also include some fairly simple hardware and software facilities. For example, many bacteria can sense the sugar concentration in the fluid around them, and can move through the fluid with a propeller-like flagellum. The hardware structure that connects the sensor to the flagellum may be responsible for executing a simple but effective algorithm. If the sugar concentration sensor receives data that is lower than what it was a few seconds ago, it reverses the flagellum and changes the direction of its current movement. You've learned a lot of different skills in addition to talking, but bacteria are not masters of learning by comparison. Bacteria's DNA determines not only their hardware, such as sugar sensors and flagella, but also their built-in software. Bacteria never learn to move in the direction of sugar. Their algorithm is written into their DNA from the very beginning of their lives and cannot be changed. This algorithm is, of course, a learning process of some kind, but bacteria do not undergo a learning process throughout their lives, but rather a slow process of evolution passed down from one generation to the next, through trial and error. Choice tends to allow bacteria to retain DNA mutations that enhance sugar uptake, some of which may make the microbe's flagellum or other hardware more developed, and some of which may improve the microbe's information processing system, increasing the efficiency of sugar detection algorithms or other software. Such a bacterium is a sample of what I call Life 1.0. Life's hardware and software facilities have evolved, not been customized. You, like me, are a sample of Life 2.0. The hardware of life is evolved, but the software is mostly customized. By human software, I mean the algorithms and knowledge you use to process the information you receive from your sensors and decide what to do with it, everything from your ability to recognize your friends when you see their faces to your ability to walk, read, count, sing, and tell jokes. You were born with none of these abilities, and all of this software had to be programmed into your brain one by one later through a process we call learning. While much of your childhood curriculum was dictated by your parents and teachers, who decided what you should learn, as you grow up you're getting more and more control over how you customize your software. For example, your school might offer an elective course in a foreign language. Do you want to install the software modules in your brain that will allow you to speak French? Or would you like to install the Spanish one? Do you want to learn to play tennis or chess? Do you want to study to become a chef, a lawyer, or a pharmacist? Do you want to finish this book and learn more about artificial intelligence and future life forms? This ability to customize software makes Life 2.0 smarter than Life 1.0. Higher intelligence relies on the combination of a large amount of hardware, made up of atoms, and a large amount of software, made up of bits. Most human hardware is built after birth, through growth, which is actually very beneficial to us because we are not limited in size by the width of our mother's birth canal. By the same token, it's also useful that most of our software is installed after we are born, through learning, because the development of our intelligence is not limited by the amount of information carried by our DNA, as it was in Life 1.0. I weigh 25 times more than I did at birth, and the amount of information stored in the synapses in my brain is hundreds of thousands of times more than the amount of information in my DNA at birth. Human brain synapses can store about 100 terabytes of knowledge and skills, whereas DNA can store only 1 gigabyte of information, which is about enough to download a movie from the internet, so that's why it's impossible for a newborn baby to speak fluent English or get a high score on a college entrance exam. None of this information can be preloaded into a baby's brain because it is inherited from its parents. None of this information can be preloaded into a baby's brain because the baby inherits the main information module, DNA, from its parents and does not have enough storage space for the information. The ability to customize software makes Life 2.0 smarter and more resilient than Life 1.0. When the external environment changes, Life 1.0 can only adapt through several generations of slow evolution, while Life 2.0 can respond almost immediately by updating its software. For example, a bacterium that frequently encounters antibiotics may have evolved over generations to become resistant to them, but any single bacterium has no ability to fight them. In contrast, a little girl who knows she is allergic to peanuts will quickly change her behavioral pattern and start avoiding peanuts. This elasticity gives Life 2.0 an enormous advantage at the group level. Although human DNA hasn't changed very much in the last 50,000 years, the total amount of knowledge that can be stored in our minds, in books, and in computers has exploded. By installing software modules that allow us to communicate with each other in more precise languages, we are able to copy the most valuable information from one person's brain into another's, so that the knowledge can be passed on after that person has passed away. Some software modules allow us to learn to read and write, so we can store and share more information than we can memorize. Developing more software that allows the brain to pursue more technological breakthroughs, i.e., more work in the sciences and engineering, would allow many people in the world to have access to much of the world's information at the touch of a finger. This flexibility makes Life 2.0 the master of the planet. As humans break free of their genetic chains, knowledge accumulates faster and faster, fueling breakthrough after breakthrough, from language to writing, from printing to modern science, from computers to the internet, and so on. The software we share with each other has led to an ever-changing cultural evolution that will dominate the future of mankind, thus making the glacially slow physical evolution of mankind irrelevant. It's just that, even with the best technology available, all known life forms are still basically limited by physiological hardware. No one will live as long as the heavens, no one will be able to memorize all of Wikipedia, no one will be able to understand all of the known fields of science, no one will be able to travel in space without using a spaceship, and no one will be able to convert the universe, with its pitifully small number of life types, into a diverse biosphere that will continue to reproduce for hundreds of millions or trillions of years, so that the universe will eventually realize its full potential and awaken completely. All of this can only be accomplished when Life completes the final upgrade to Life 3.0, with the ability to customize its own hardware and software facilities. This means that Life 3.0 is the master of its own destiny, and can be completely free from evolutionary constraints. The boundaries between these three life stages are not black and white. Assuming that bacteria are Life 1.0 and humans are Life 2.0, rats can be categorized as Life 1.1, rats can learn a lot of things, but not enough to develop a language or invent the internet. More importantly, because of the lack of language, most of the things that rats learn are lost with death, and cannot be passed on from generation to generation. To put it another way, you can think of humans as Life 2.1, we can make small hardware upgrades like dental implants, artificial joints, and pacemakers, but we can't make dramatic changes like growing 10 times taller or making our brains 1,000 times bigger. To put it simply, we can divide the development of life into three stages, separated by life's own capabilities and its ability to customize itself. Life 1.0, biological stage, life's hardware and software depend on evolution. Life 2.0, cultural stage, the hardware of life is limited by evolution, but it can customize its own software. Life 3.0, technological stage, the hardware and software of life can be customized. After 13.8 billion years of evolution, the development of the universe on Earth has accelerated dramatically. Life 1.0 was born only 4 billion years ago, and Life 2.0, us humans, stepped onto the stage of history hundreds of thousands of years ago, and many artificial intelligence experts believe that Life 3.0 will be possible in the next few centuries, and that we cannot even rule out the possibility of seeing Life 3.0 within our lifetimes, if artificial intelligence makes great progress. If artificial intelligence makes great progress, we may not even rule out the possibility of seeing Life 3.0 in our lifetime. For the ultimate goal of this universe, it seems that we, Life 2.0 human beings, who are capable of software updating, that is, capable of learning, have evolved from Life 1.0, which can only rely on evolutionary upgrading of software and hardware, only for the purpose of evolving Life 3.0, which is a transition from Life 3.0, which is capable of self-renewal of both software and hardware. In the Life 3.0 world, I am afraid that there will be no more human beings. Then, what is the meaning of our existence? What is wisdom? Wisdom equals the ability to achieve complex goals. This would satisfy a wide variety of definitions, as the ability to understand, self-awareness, problem-solving and learning can all be considered complex goals. This definition also goes hand in hand with the Oxford Dictionary's statement that it is the ability to acquire and use knowledge and skills, as long as the use of knowledge and skills is set as a complex goal. Since there are more complex goals than there are clans to keep track of, there is a wide range of possible intelligences. By our definition, it would be meaningless to quantify the intelligence of humans, animals, or machines in terms of a single number such as IQ. Which is smarter, a computer that only plays backgammon or a computer that only plays Go? The answer to this question is not meaningful because the two computers specialize in different things and cannot be directly compared, but if there is a third computer that can achieve all of its goals at the same level and perform better than one of the computers at one of the goals, for example, win at backgammon, then there is not much controversy about saying that the third computer is smarter. It's also meaningless to make sweeping judgments about intelligence, because capabilities are like spectra, and may not always fit into an all-or-nothing profile. Who can achieve the goal of speaking, a newborn or a radio host? Of course, it is the latter. But what if it's a baby who can speak 10 words, or a baby who can speak 500 words? Can you draw that line? Because it's not fun to draw the line between wisdom and non-wisdom in an artificial way, and it's much more useful to simply quantify it, and instead present it as the ability to achieve different goals. When categorizing intelligence, it is also important to distinguish between limited and extensive intelligence. IBM's Deep Blue computer is specifically designed to play backgammon, and it even beat Garry Kasparov, the world chess champion, in 1997, but it can only achieve such a limited goal as to play backgammon. Don't look at the hardware and software facilities of the Deep Blue computer, but the fact is that it can't even play tic-tac-toe with a 4-year-old child. The DQN artificial intelligence system developed by Google's DeepMind can achieve a slightly broader goal. It can compete with humans in dozens of vintage Atari video games, and even beat them. Human intelligence is far more extensive, with dozens of breathtaking tricks to master. Given enough training, a small child with a strong head can play any game, speak any language, engage in any sport or occupation. Comparing the intelligence of humans and machines at this stage, we can easily win, and machines can only beat humans in a few limited areas, but the number of items is increasing. The ultimate goal of AI research is to create a universal AI that is as broad as possible, the ability to achieve almost any goal, including learning, as discussed in Chapter 4. The term universal AI became popular because 3 AI experts, Shane Legg, Mark Gubrud, and Ben Goertzel, emphasized that a human-level universal AI is one that is at least as capable of achieving any goal as a human being, so that the term universal AI is not used unless it is specifically emphasized, for example, by the term super AI to mean beyond human. Therefore, unless there is a special emphasis on it, for example, using superhuman AGI to represent superhuman AGI, I will follow the definition and use artificial general intelligence, AGI, to represent human-level generalized artificial intelligence. While the word wisdom usually has a positive connotation, please note that we are taking a neutral view. The emphasis is on the ability to achieve complex goals, whether good or bad. That is to say, intelligent people may be charitable or they may specialize in doing harm. It's also important to clarify whose goals we're talking about. Let's say you have a brand new robot that acts as a personal assistant. The robot has no goals of its own, it does exactly what you tell it to do, and you ask it to prepare a nice Italian meal. You ask it to prepare a great Italian meal. On receiving the order, the robot searches for Italian recipes on the internet, finds the nearest supermarket to buy them, learns how to make pasta, and so on. In the end, the robot successfully bought the ingredients to make the meal, and you'd think it's smart enough to do so after you've had a good meal. In fact, the meal was originally a goal you set, and the robot took your goal and set several sub-goals for itself in an orderly fashion, including checking out at the grocery store and grating Parmesan cheese. In this case, the ability to achieve a mission is a necessary condition for determining intelligent behavior. For us humans, the difficulty of a job is naturally related to how much we have to pay to get it done, but it would be inappropriate to apply this standard to a computer. It's much harder to figure out how to multiply 314,159 by 271,828 than it is to recognize our friend in the photo, but computers have demonstrated arithmetic skills far beyond those of human beings since before I was born, and it's only recently that they've begun to be able to recognize images in the same way that human beings do. The Moravec paradox refers to the fact that this seemingly simple ability to perceive actually requires a huge amount of computational resources, and explains why the human brain is able to do recognition so easily because we have invested a huge amount of customized hardware in this area, more than a quarter of our brain's capacity, to be exact. More than a quarter of our brain's capacity. While computers are universal machines with the potential to perform any number of tasks, human potential is stronger in areas that require long-term importance and are not intended to be trivial. Imagine a map of human ability in which we label arithmetic and rote memorization in low-lying areas, theorem proving and chess at the foot of a mountain, and vigorous exercise, hand-eye coordination, and social interaction at the top of a mountain, and the progress of computers would look like a slow flood over the Earth's surface. Half a century ago, computers started in the low-lying areas and flooded over hand calculations and bookkeeping, but most of us were still standing on land then, and now that the flood has reached the foot of the mountain, we have to take the loss of this place seriously. It may seem safe to stand on the top of the hill, but if the flooding continues at the same rate, these positions will fall without exception in about half a century's time. I think we need to prepare Noah's Ark and get used to life on the sea before that day comes. Just a few decades after he wrote this, sea levels have risen faster, as he predicted, as if experiencing strong global warming, and some of the foothills he wrote about, like chess pieces, have long since sunk into the sea. What will happen to sea levels in the future, and what we should do about it, are some of the themes of the book's follow-up. As sea levels continue to rise, it is possible that one day they will flood over a trigger point, causing a sea change. For machines, this critical sea level is when they learn to design their own artificial intelligence. Until the sea reaches this elevation, the rise in sea level is the result of human improvement of the machine. Beyond this elevation, the rise in sea level will be the result of machine improvement of the machine, and it is very likely that the record-breaking speed of human improvement of the machine will be surpassed, and all the surface will be swallowed up in a short period of time. This amazing and widely debated concept is called the artificial intelligence explosion singularity and is an interesting topic that will be explored in Chapter 4. Turing, the computer pioneer, famously said that as long as a computer could perform the most basic commands, and given enough time and memory, it could do anything that any other computer could do by feeding it new programs. A computer that passes this basic requirement is called a general-purpose computer, also known as a general-purpose Turing machine, and all the smartphones and laptops in sight today are sufficiently general-purpose to meet this standard. In this vein, I would call an intelligence that passes this crucial criterion for self-designed AI universal intelligence. Given enough time and computational resources, it has the means to accomplish any goal it wants, just like any other intelligent agent. For example, if it decides that it wants to enhance its ability to interact socially, predict the future, or design artificial intelligence, it will be able to do so. If it wants to figure out how to build a robot factory, it will be able to build one. In other words, it is highly likely that general intelligence will develop into Life 3.0. Artificial intelligence experts are accustomed to the idea that intelligence, in the final analysis, is nothing more than information and computation, and has nothing to do with whether or not it is flesh and blood, or whether or not it is composed of carbon atoms. This means that we have no reason to believe that the intelligence of machines will not catch up with that of human beings in the future. But physics tells us that everything is a product of mass energy exchange in the end, so seriously speaking, what is information and computation? How do the abstract and intangible information and computing attach themselves to tangible objects? More specifically, how do a bunch of monotonous particles that change according to the laws of physics exhibit behavior we call intelligence? If you think the answers to these questions are obvious. When super artificial intelligence becomes a reality, is consciousness an obligation? What is consciousness? There are still many different opinions on what it is, and how will we face and respond to inanimate super artificial intelligence if it is also conscious? I think, therefore I am. We humans must be conscious to want to know what consciousness is, and to know that we are still alive. The definition of consciousness given by TEMAC is, consciousness is subjective experience. Whatever consciousness is, we know for sure that the purpose of everything is to have consciousness in order to have meaning. Consciousness leads to feelings, feelings lead to values, the world leads to good and bad, and the universe leads to meaning. In the next few decades, unless there is a devastating catastrophe, super artificial intelligence will take over the world sooner or later. This determines the ultimate future of the universe, and many of the big political, social, and economic things we do now may all become relatively trivial. But Max Tegmark still believes that we can shape this situation by embodying positive human values. In any case, it's time for all of us to get up to speed on what general artificial intelligence is all about.